For Sunday, December 18th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, the Georgia Secretary of State is hacked off. The Attorney General backs off Mayor Kasim Reed, and the Democrats have set some targets for 2 years from now in Georgia. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you'll be with us on this Sunday. There are, if you don't count today, I guess there are 6 shopping days left until Christmas. Sound reasonable?
I guess so.
I haven't done a thing. You ready?
Ready.
Ready? Okay, ready. Good for you. I'm not. Let's begin with a story that I still don't understand, and that is Secretary of State Brian Kemp in Georgia upset with what he says is hacking by the Department of Homeland Security. The Homeland Security Department, Phil, says no, it was just an employee trying to get information. What is it?
Well, I spoke with the secretary on the phone to get to the bottom of this. I had a hunch that would be a topic, and he tells me that the Department of Homeland Security keeps changing their story. At first, it was somebody in another state, and now they're saying no, it may be in another state, somebody trying to break into it. The response, according to Secretary Kemp, is inconclusive and unacceptable from the Department of Homeland Security. So he is trying to get the press involved. He's trying to find out, remember, and we talked about this a few weeks ago on the gang, remember that he refused to agree to federal scrutiny over our state election system.
It wasn't so much scrutiny as it was ensuring that the system was not hackable.
Well,
and there were only 2 states that didn't go along with the Department of Homeland Security.
One of them was Georgia.
One of which was Georgia, which was absurd.
But why?
But he thinks that maybe, and this is just a theory, maybe it's retaliation, maybe it's trying to embarrass Georgia. I don't know. There's no proof of that.
Yeah, I just think he's posturing because he wants to make a name for himself because he's looking at maybe running for governor, perhaps.
But
I also think he was embarrassed. What was it? Was it a year or 2 years ago?
There have been so many missteps where we have all exactly right.
The data breach,
right? Where we have all been critical of this Secretary of State over any number of issues.
No, we
and
all
it seems like
haven't.
Yes, we have. When we had that breach, I think that we did, and I think that this is just. I think you're exactly right. I think that he's posturing. He wants to be governor of the state of Georgia, and he's made some serious missteps in the past.
There was an attempt. Now I don't know about posturing. I think that's harsh, but he has to report to the people that this happened, and he has to get an explanation.
That the federal government is hacking into the state when we got Vladimir Putin hacking into and sabotaging our electoral process, and we're going to try to make this the story.
That's another issue.
Well, you've made my point, and we'll come back to that. But I'd just say that neither one of these is an issue.
Right.
Hillary Clinton didn't lose because Russians allegedly.
You don't think that cybersecurity is an issue for the United States of America, that we are engaged in a cyber war with our opponents? You know, it's amazing to me.
We are, but that's not what you said.
A couple
years ago,
a couple of years ago, Republicans saw Russia as an evil empire. And now Vladimir Putin is your best friend. Now that you've got Donald Trump and Rex Tillerson at the head of the government.
We're way off target here.
Not really. Not really.
So we go back to
it's a matter of whether or not it's an issue or not.
Let me transition out of this. I'm just a little puzzled that Brian Kemp is making such a big deal out of it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think he needs to be accountable to the people because he did learn a lesson from that data breach of a year ago.
I guess that's a point well made, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem to me to be. First of all, the leadership of Homeland Security is going to change real quickly, January 20th.
Right, and I think they're stalling until they can get out of there.
All right. Now, another sign of the times I thought was interesting was we have a new Attorney General, Chris Carr, and this week he joined several other states, about 20 to be exact, in wanting a rollback of the power regulations issued by the EPA, which are a killer for business. And anybody who develops electricity. I think that is a very smart move by the new Attorney General because there's going to be a new sheriff in town January 20th. And these onerous regulations are going to be rolled back.
And so why do you need state attorneys general to precipitate that process when we know that that's going to be on the top agenda of the Trump administration?
Because we're going to have a conservative government that respects the 10th Amendment. And in this case, the states should be able to set their own regulations about power and pollution and
Oh,
that
that
sort
would
of
be
thing.
terrific. China all over again.
No.
How far back are we going to go
no,
in this administration?
Yeah, I think
How
he wanted-
about
he wanted-
environmentally? I mean, climate change is what? It's a myth. Every scientist who's ever studied it is crazy. Doesn't know what he's talking about.
And Rick Perry,
I mean, what's the
Secretary of
latest? What's the
Energy,
latest tweet
Do you
on
really,
climate
do you
change?
really
Who
think?
wants
Do you really
to
think we would
eliminate
go
the
back to dirty?
department?
You don't both believe we'd go back to dirty air. In fact, in Atlanta, where
The
we've
air
had
is
problems,
cleaner than it
it's
was in the
cleaner than
30s.
it was. And Republicans have always supported clean air initiatives, going back to Richard Nixon.
Well, even
created
before
the
that,
Department of Energy,
going back
correct?
to Teddy Roosevelt.
Jimmy Carter created it.
Was that Jimmy Carter before or after Nixon?
There was Jimmy
Right.
Carter in 1979 when the energy.
Global warming is a myth,
And you know what? And you know what? The regulations, Dick is right, have been onerous, and even a lot of Democrats who understand business and over-regulate. Regulation's fine, Jeff, but over-regulation
Now,
has been stifling.
Well,
change the
it's
subject.
also been saving the planet.
One other little warning for businesses came. It's especially critical in Georgia. Donald Trump's tweeting, and he tweeted about the F-35 fighter, which is a fighter plane being developed for all the branches of the service, and it is a huge component of the work at the Lockheed plant in Marietta. And Trump is, I think, correctly saying the cost overruns have been ridiculous. But you do get a little shiver that it could hurt business in Marietta.
It certainly hit them
I
in
think
the
that's
stock
worrisome.
market.
It could, and you know, let's talk just for a second about military contracting. It's been a bone of contention no matter who is president and what party is in power. When you have to do these
Really?
giant contracts, you have to go to Congressman Dickerson and say, we're going to do some parts in your state. We go to Congresswoman Scott, oh, we're going to do parts in your state. And of course, we're going to look at, and all of these are, no private business would do something like that, but that's what runs up the costs. And we're going to have to try to control
That's one of the
that.
things,
Our
yeah.
That is
cyber
one of
war-
the things.
The cyber war that we talked about a minute ago has also run up the cost because the Russians hacking into our security systems got plans for the F-35 early on, and they had to make some changes. They had to make some design changes because our enemies, or the people who used to be our enemies, who are now our friends, knew about
it's
it.
a lot of people, including maybe teenagers, who hacked into the Pentagon. And you know, Barack Obama said a year ago the White House was hacked. I didn't see the liberal media get hysterical over that.
And also, President Obama was notified of the Russian hacks of
He
the
was.
Democratic National Committee, and he pushed it aside. He
He
said,
did
"We're not
not
doing
here's
that."
a question. Here's
Come on.
the issue.
Did you know
He did
that?
not push it
Are the
aside.
major defense contractors, the number one by this point, the number one and number two, Boeing and the other one, Lockheed, are they both going to find out what is on the agenda for the plans that they have going forward in terms of military hardware via tweet from the president-elect of the United States? The person that you all support?
He's speaking to two different audiences.
You know, Jeff,
Yes, and he says two different things to those
you
two
are in public
audiences
relations,
as well.
and you tell your
Which is, so
clients,
what does he
rightly
really
so.
mean?
You got to get out.
You tell your clients, rightly so, that social media is where the action is in the 21st century.
Oh my
Now,
God! You want him to keep his?
No, I want him to reasonably tweet, and he needs to be controlled on his
But he
Twitter.
is
But I
not.
think it's a new dynamic to get around the liberal media.
Well, I
Well-
do, and that's why I say he's speaking to two different audiences.
And he says two
Right.
different things.
And it was effective. He's the president-elect. Let's get out of this segment. One more note about state news. It's sad we don't have to comment on it. Georgia has had 6 police officers shot in 6 days, and 2 of them died. We had a funeral this week down in Americus, and since November 1st, 5 dead police officers in the state of Georgia. Shocking. All right, when we come back, the Attorney General again. This time he gives a pass for now to Kasim Reed. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
For whatever reason, the Georgia Gang hasn't really joined the bandwagon attacking Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed for the use of the blue lights and sirens in his SUV. But it's hard to ignore this week. We forgot last week, we didn't have time, Phil, to mention that the driver of Kasim Reed's official vehicle was charged in Cobb County for causing an accident. And
that's right.
And that's news.
And it was a policeman, and this is where I don't like it, because if this man loses insurance just because the mayor says run that red light or break the law, that's wrong.
Yeah, but you're making a presumption there that you don't know is correct.
That's
and that
true.
is that
Well,
the
that's
mayor
true.
ordered him to do anything.
But the news is really...
And the likelihood of a police officer in an ordinary environment getting charged with causing an accident is extraordinarily rare. It seems to me a political move on the part of Cobb County.
Well,
it's just that
I don't-
simple.
I
I know
think not
only
you
that,
always
but as I have
defend. You
said
always
before-
defend the
I
mayor.
bet you-
Well,
You
I
always
defend the mayor
the
because
mayor.
we've got a good mayor who's done a great job and has put $150+ million in the bank for the citizens
But in the
of the
meantime,
city
the
of
Attorney
Atlanta.
General, I think, did the right thing when he said, I'm not stepping into this
Right.
because it's a court case in Cobb County. I think that was the right posture by... Now, skeptics could say, well, Governor Deal and Kasim Reed are so close that the Attorney General might be trying to cut the mayor a break.
Well,
but I don't
Well,
think so.
no.
I think it's
No,
just common
I don't
sense.
there's
think
an
so.
acknowledgement on the part of the
I think
people at
it's
the
serious
state
when
level
someone
that
is
this
hit.
happens all the time. Well, you think it's serious when someone's hit. Somebody's hit every couple of seconds on the road,
But
right?
it's not by reckless driving.
Well, I don't know that that's what that was.
With a public official, Jeff, I think I'm willing to give the
I don't
mayor.
think that we know that. I don't know we know
I'm
the
willing.
details.
We don't
No,
know
we
the
don't.
details.
I will,
We don't
I
know
will
the
agree with
details.
that. I will agree with that. But why set yourself up into this scenario? I think it's a gray area, but I think the mayor has a responsibility to try to obey the traffic laws.
Well, I think that we've got a mayor who has done a remarkable job for the city of
That's not
Atlanta.
the point.
That's
That's
not the
And
point.
here's the story.
That's not the point.
The story isn't about pension reform. Story isn't about all the money that's in the bank. Story isn't about the tremendous number of jobs that have been created in the city. Story's about blue lights. and that seems to me
the story's about
ridiculous.
somebody that could have been killed.
Another Atlanta
Well-
story that I think is definitely worth a look is the fact that the GAE, the Georgia Association of Educators, AKA the teachers union, they always say we don't have a teachers union. Oh yeah? Well, that teachers union is in court challenging the Atlanta Public Schools decision to take low performing schools and try something different,
Right.
namely charter operations. And I just, to me, the news of that lawsuit said how hard it is to reform public education when you have teachers unions, when they're looking out for their jobs before they're looking out for students.
Well,
Most of those teachers in those schools that were troubled got reassigned.
Well, I
What's
think
the problem here?
I think the problem is that it was done as a workaround this Amendment 1, which was going to take over the schools, that have the state take over the schools.
Yep.
And it wasn't done as a community-inspired event to create a charter school. It was done by the school board itself. So that's a little bit different.
But Alexis, I think we all ought to give Superintendent Maria Karstafen some credit because we all agree there are kids trapped in failing schools
Well,
in
they
the
are-
Atlanta, and
they're
she's
trapped in
trying.
poverty is what they're trapped in.
Well,
not
whatever.
to
We can argue
continue
that
to
all
say
day, but
failing
she's trying.
schools. That's
You can't solve that one.
She's trying to do something to get kids into better schools.
And that is certainly admirable. I'm
Okay,
not
well, let's praise
criticizing,
her at
but
least
I'm
for that.
also
And let's see
saying
how it
that
works out.
The Teachers Professional Association should be looking out for the teachers.
Well, they're looking out. It's a union, as Dick points out, and I think Superintendent Karstafen is trying to thread the needle by saying, let's do something to your point and
That's
see
what
if
I've been saying all along.
See if maybe
Let's
these
try
schools can
something.
do better.
and I don't disagree with that
Okay.
effort and that motive. I'm just saying the way it was done is what is
Well,
we have
That's
a
what a
Secretary of
school board
Education
does.
We all
over there
got-
who
we
wants
all
to
got
shut
an
down
email.
public education
Oh,
Right.
anyway.
that's
They don't-
false.
We
That's
all-
absolutely
we
false.
We all got an email this week from our colleague Jeff, inviting us to a press conference. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Sorry I couldn't make it. But Burl Ellis has been returned to office in DeKalb County. I think the last time we addressed this question, we didn't think he was going to actually go back to the job, but he is on the job as we tape on
Look at
Friday. I don't quite understand it, except, and so I'm going to put it right to you, Jeff, because you're close to that. Is this his way of seeking vindication by working for 3 weeks?
Well, I think that you had a court order that said that Burl Ellis is
Well,
now
you did.
the CEO of the county, and for the rest of the year, until Michael Thurman comes in, the county needs a CEO. and Burl Ellis has always wanted to do what is best by the taxpayers, and he went back into office. I also think that it is, and this
Did he
isn't
have to
him
do it to
talking.
collect his back pay?
He did not. He did not. The
Okay.
back pay is coming anyway. But this is me talking and not Burl Ellis. I also think that it's a matter of comeuppance, of coming full circle,
Well,
right?
that's what I'm getting at.
And I think that even if it's just
And I don't
largely,
blame him.
even if it's just largely symbolic, you went through this harrowing process, you and your family, 2 trials, right? Being denied an appeal bond by the judge in this case, which was unconscionable. Spending 8 months in prison only to be reversed, and an opportunity to return to the office to which you were duly
You don't have a lot of
elected.
disagreement on this panel. Let me ask you, we've got to get out, but just one question. I'm hearing that Burl Ellis might seek to have the taxpayers cover his legal expenses. Is that possible? I haven't looked at the law.
I have not heard that. He has never said that. He was asked that at the press conference earlier, and
I think that would be wrong and a mistake. I hope that's not.
I don't even know if it's
don't-
legal.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's. I don't think that it's possible, but I don't know the details.
But if he
All right.
was the CEO and he was charged with something that he did not do, then possibly the county should pick up the tab.
Well, he didn't receive a fair trial as to what he actually did. I don't agree with the charges. I've made that plain for 2.5 years. But, you know, a jury was convinced that he did what he was accused of, but he didn't get a fair trial. And that's not America.
And that's
Right.
right.
not America.
That's right. And
That's
that's why the jury was convinced, because he didn't get a fair trial.
All right, we
Right.
got to get out of that. I just wondered why he wanted to go back for 3 weeks. That's why I was going to ask you.
yeah, I think
You know,
he would,
all right, we're going to come back, and believe it or not, we've got an election to talk about. I know you're all sick of it, but there's a good one, and it's coming up in North Georgia. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
You know, everybody's supposed to be sick of elections, and we did have a long campaign season. But because of this this federal judge, unelected, who ordered Georgia to have these ridiculously long runoffs, we've got one coming up in January. It comes in North Georgia. It's for a state Senate seat. Charlie Bethel, appointed to the High Court by Governor Deal. And we have a
Court of Appeals.
Court of Appeals. And we have a runoff in January.
Right.
Between a Republican and what looks like a Democrat.
Well, that's right. We're up in Dalton and Murray County, and that's a area, incidentally, that Trump scored over 70% of the
It's
vote.
also Whitfield County, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then you had several candidates. One of them actually voted for Hillary Clinton. And that's Debbie Peppers, and she's running against Chuck Payne. Who's
She
a
only
more
ran
regular.
9 points behind the regular Republican,
Right.
Chuck Payne.
Right.
And so, as we've seen, Democrats do have a chance occasionally in Georgia in special elections, in outside the metro area. And so that's one just to watch. We don't need to dwell on it.
So a warning to the people in that district: don't vote for Debbie Peppers.
What?
Well, I don't know Debbie Peppers, but if she voted for
If she
Hillary
voted
Clinton,
for Hillary Clinton, that's
it
not
seems
good,
to me
isn't
all
it?
her opponent has to do is point
Well,
that out.
Yeah.
Or point out why she voted
Oh,
for
wait,
Hillary
I just
Clinton.
did. But I
Not,
pointed.
Oh, yes,
And-
but you're not her opponent. All right.
the
You know,
terrible, deplorable Donald Trump.
This is kind of inside baseball, but I want to talk about it. The Democrats have put together a list of vulnerable Republicans in Georgia, as they see it. Apparently, the common denominator is Republican office holders who won in districts that were carried by Hillary Clinton. And they've got 3 state senators and 12 state reps on their list. We don't need to go into them. I looked at the list of 15 and said, I don't think, and maybe one of these 15 is beatable by a Democrat. Because really, if a district was carried by Hillary Clinton, there were lots of other reasons, Phil.
Well, you're right, and I would say maybe 2. They were looking at, in fact, the Brookhaven seat and maybe in Henry County. But as you look at it, remember we talked about how the Libertarian Party tripled its vote in the state? I think you saw a lot of moderate centrist Republicans
Who
either
could
leaving
not
their
bring themselves to vote for
yeah,
Donald
they
Trump.
left their ballot blank. They left their ballot blank,
right.
or, and my point is, or they voted Libertarian, which
Or
pushed
Hillary
up.
Clinton as
So,
well.
so I think that explains they're not Democrats, but they're people that didn't want to vote for Trump. I think that, and some of these are very heavily Republican
Well,
areas, like in Sandy Springs.
Well, one of the seats is Wendell Willard, who's retiring.
Right, and one of them was in my seat, Hunter Hill, who easily won
I would
re-election.
say Wendell Willard's district is at least 70-30 Republican.
Well, I think this is a one-shot wonder, and I think the Democratic Party of Georgia, which has not come up with a post-mortem, they're going to have to come up with a strategy. And like we all have discussed, are they going to move to the center or are they not?
Oh, I don't think that it's a matter of whether or not they move to the center. I think it's a matter of demographic change, which is going to happen. But I think that your point is valid, and that is you had in a lot of these districts, you had people who didn't want to vote for Trump, but were willing and ready to vote for those local Republican office holders. And we saw that not just in Georgia and in districts in Metro Atlanta, but throughout the country.
Right.
Yeah, but still, I think the broader point here, and we've addressed it a couple of times on the broadcast, the Democratic Party's in big trouble nationally. Georgia is a small part of it. They just don't have any office holders. They're down to 14 governors. They're going to fall even further behind in the Senate in 2 years, in all likelihood, just because the number of races that are up for grabs.
Yeah.
Well,
And they're not going to win control of the House, and they're not going to control redistricting.
No, but I think that there's a generational shift in the middle, in which we're in the midst of right now, and particularly for the
Who will
Democrats.
be the leaders of the
Well,
Democratic
that's what I'm saying.
Party?
They will be emerging, and it's just as Obama came out of nowhere and disrupted
And
the
Trump
party.
sure did.
And Trump then came out of nowhere, but he's a boomer, so he was going against.
Well, you
type,
may
but
be
he's
right.
reaction to
The
Obama.
liberal media will anoint someone like they did Barack Obama, so you may be
no,
right.
the liberal
Well, I
media
think that the
did not
liberal
anoint Obama.
media
Obama wanted
anointed
out
Donald
himself.
Trump through all the earned media that he got. For
Right.
crying out
They
loud. You all
anointed
complain
Trump.
about the
Right.
liberal
I wanna be
media,
ki- I
and
wanna-
they have Trump stories every day.
Let's talk about Trump real quickly here.
You're making a good point. I have to say, CNN made a ton of money, even though they're liberal, on Donald Trump's airtime.
But you know,
right.
I think as we taped Friday, there were 2 major cabinet posts still open for Trump to pick from. And Sonny Perdue has, of course, been mentioned, our former governor, has been mentioned for agriculture. That's one that's open. And he may be named agriculture secretary by the time this broadcast airs. But in Georgia, as Phil pointed out in Insider Advantage this week, you've got David Perdue and Johnny Isakson have set up panels to interview potential prosecutors, judges, that sort of thing, federal appointments. Right. No Trump people, huh?
No, that's right. It's interesting that both senators had people that are not known to the Trump transition team. And so I reached out to some of the Trump people up in D.C.
No
we don't know any
kidding.
of
They
these
don't know
people.
anybody.
So, you know, I think they're going to have to fix that and get some Trump people on these panels.
Yeah, well, I think the establishment said, hey, we won. Let's just do what we always do. Yeah, but wait a minute. There's an old joke. Not so fast, right? All right. When we come back, we're going to go to winners and losers. And this time I mean it.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we'll go to winners and losers now, beginning with Jeff. And I guess this is the appropriate week to wish everybody Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, because that's coming up in a week. But anyway, Merry Christmas to you all.
Well, same to you,
Thank you.
Dick. Thank you very much. I'd like to applaud the new RNC chief, Republican National Committee. Her name is Ronna McDaniel. According to a press release put out by the president's transition team, nowhere did it mention that her name is Ronna Romney McDaniel. It just said Ronna McDaniel. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, in
The
the
loser in
interest,
that was Georgia's Nick Ayers, who she
right,
beat him out.
and you know, in just pointing out that we've got a new sort of royal family. 20% of the people sitting at the table with the tech leaders were Trumps. 20%. How about that?
Well, they
5
certainly
of them.
brighten the room.
Yeah. All
right, Alexis, go for it.
called him King Lear rather than President-elect Trump.
Go for it.
All right. The annual Mayor's Mask Ball this weekend is always a perennial favorite that raises money for the United Negro College Fund. Congratulations to the mayor and all
How
those
much
who
money is the
support it.
Housing Authority going to spend in taxpayer dollars on tickets for that?
I don't know. I'm not
go ahead, I'm
privy to
sorry.
that information. Also, I want to congratulate the Cooper Middle School principal Vanessa Watkins and science teacher Carol Mickus in Austell. They are the winners of the $27,000 Voya Unsung Heroes Award for their innovative science program with Michelle Weddington and Dr. Lisa Maynard at Clarkdale Elementary School. Congratulations.
All right. Phil, what do you have?
Big news in Savannah the other day. They broke ground for a big multi-use hotel and restaurant and quality Everybody shops there on the west end of that riverfront that everybody enjoys in Savannah. Richard Kessler, developer, is the winner, and Savannah's the winner. And then our own CEO, Jeff Sprecher of Intercontinental Exchange, based in Sandy Springs. He owns the New York Stock Exchange. He bought another stock exchange just the other day.
It's kind of cool, isn't it?
It is. So he's
Hey, what am I going to do? I think I'll go buy a stock exchange.
He's another winner.
All right, my winner would be the Braves' John Sherholtz, who was admitted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, but was also kind of a loser this week, and Jeff is aware of this. The Naples, Florida area turned him down cold on spending any taxpayer money for a Braves spring training facility. And a winner this week and every week, Craig Sager, dead at 65, the colorful sportscaster for CNN and TBS, a friend of mine for, gosh, 35 years. What a shame to lose him so young. And also, staying on that sports theme, your Atlanta Hawks are in trouble. And the Falcons have kind of a trap game today on Fox against the 49ers. They're terrible, but we need a victory. See you next week on the Georgia Gang. Merry Christmas.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.